And you got to stop playing small. If you want to have the life that you want, you got to start taking big shots and you got to live way bigger. And that decision alone to change my mindset. At the time, I was a $100,000 mindset, not even, if I'm being very transparent with you, that shift away from that solopreneur to being able to team builder and leader was foundational in terms of that $1 million mindset.
Welcome to the Fitness CEO Podcast.
Hey friends, welcome back. Your fitness CEO, Bryce Henson, in the case that you are new to the channel. And I got an awesome solo episode for you today. And the topic is how to shift from a $100,000 mindset, if I can say that correctly, all the way to transitioning to a $1 million plus mindset. And it's a mental shift for sure. And I have some takeaways, 3 tangible takeaways from my business journey that will really help you along yours. But to lay some foundation, I want to share a story in my youth that was really one of the first times that I had this big shift from thinking small to thinking big. And that really is a foundational part of the process from changing your mindset to a $100,000 mindset to thinking much larger into the millions and one day to the billions, which is the call to action, the vision here. For those of you new to the show, I've lived in Southern California since 2004 for nearly 20 years at the time of this recording, but originally I'm from the Southeast and the Midwest and come from very humble beginnings for first world standards. My mother, in a very stoic fashion, escaped us from a very tragic situation. My father, who's a good dude in the grand scheme of things, but suffered from alcohol addiction, from gambling, and a list of other, addictions that really had a big challenge on his life and our familiar life, because that's not really a great family upbringing. But thankfully, got out of that situation when I was young, and we escaped to my grandma's place in Michigan. So I spent the latter probably 12 years there, from when I was about 9 or 10 all the way till I was about 21 years old. And making that shift, if you will, was challenging. We used to run out of money before we used to run out of month, and because of the financial constraints, didn't get to see a lot outside that particular, change. So stayed in Michigan, lived there, probably, stayed within a 5 to 10 mile radius for a period of over a decade. But then I decided to enroll myself and got into school at Michigan State University. So I was excited to spread my wings, if you will. It's only about an hour and a half from home, but that was the first, step, if you will, to broadening my horizons. And something a little bit about Michigan State that I want to share. It's for a public university, has one of the biggest study abroad programs in the world, for that matter. So they indoctrinate you at the very beginning. And I remember going to have an orientation, if you will, my first semester, and they talked about a little about the programs that they had to offer. And very candid with you, it went in one ear and went out the other ear. In fact, I'm embarrassed to say this, especially since I've been able to live in 3 continents now and learn another language fluently and be able to befriend, many different, people from different cultures and languages and ethnicities, if you will. But I remember my freshman year going to, the international fair and just being frustrated because there's not even English here. I was like, guys, go back to your countries, which is so embarrassing now, but it shows the growth that I, went throughout this process. But that was my, initial point to college. But then my sophomore year rolled by, and then I started to kind of get this little sense of more adventure. I wanted to kind of explore the world, if you will. In hindsight, it's a little trivial because I would take, an hour or 2 trip to visit my buddy at this university or that university, or a big trip, 6-hour drive to Chicago. At the time, it felt like a big stretch goal. I look back and I laugh, but it's part of the process. But that was really when my mindset started to change of hey, there's a big world out there. It's probably a good idea to start exploring. But it wasn't until my junior year when I connected with a buddy that I hadn't seen in a few months, and he just got back from a study abroad program in Thailand through Michigan State, and he was just raving about his experience, about his travel to Bangkok and the islands, and just the whole magical experience of studying abroad. And if you've been abroad or if you've gone to a program like that, the big kind of cultural and mindset changes it can have on someone. So he was raving about it. He's like, Bryce, do me a solid. I think you're going to love it. There's a study abroad fair that I want to encourage you to go. Check it out. At the very least, there'll be good information. And if it works out, if it works out. If it doesn't, no harm either. Hesitantly, but also too inspired from, my new sense of travels, I decided to check out the study abroad fair. And I did. And I spent a couple hours and I met as many professors and I went to as many booths as humanly possible. And I remember remember having a packet of information afterwards of, the many different programs. And when I was unpacking them over the following week, what I realized there was only 3 programs that would fit the criteria for my major, because I was in my junior year. I only had a semester or a year and a half left. I graduated a semester early. So I was looking at the programs, and there was 3 programs. The first one was Greece. The second program was Argentina. And the third program was a study abroad program, the new program to Asia. It was based in Hong Kong. It also had travel in Japan and Singapore. And when I looked at the packet and they did 3 different options, for me, it was a no-brainer. I'm going to Greece for sure. But then when I looked into the details of the program, there were some logistical challenges. And both Greece and Argentina fit in the same boat. They were extended programs, and they also had an amount of credit load that was far more needed than my major. So at that time, I had to invest another $3,000 or $4,000 on credits that I would only use about half of those credits. So for me, when I was looking at, I was more emotionally tied to go to the Greek islands or go to Argentina, it just didn't make sense financially and logistically, and not the best prudent decision. Then I set my sights on Asia, and I wasn't sold. I never had a big, draw to go into Hong Kong or Japan or Singapore at the time. So I was kind of racking my brain. I thought to myself, maybe this isn't going to be an opportunity for me. But the credits were a perfect fit. Like, the stars aligned in terms of the time of the program, the dates, the credits. So logistically, it was a really, really strong option for me, and it would allow me to graduate a semester early, which I alluded to the fact that I did. So I pondered on it a little bit, but it wasn't until I had a fraternity event, and I was talking with one of my buddies, and I explained to him the vision, and he said, well, Bryce, I understand that you really want to go to Greece and that you really want to go to Argentina, and maybe you're not so excited about Asia, but let me ask you a question. Can you ever envision yourself going to visit Greece in the future? And I was like, well, yeah, I think so. I'm not that excited about it. Yeah, I can envision myself going to see Athens and the Greek islands, and that sounds amazing. He asked me the same question about Argentina. I was like, yeah, I've always had the dream to go to Buenos Aires and, see, some of the backlands in Argentina, the wine country. Then he asked me the same question about Asia. And I'll never forget, I stopped dead in my tracks and I said, no, I don't think I can ever envision myself, spending time in Hong Kong or Tokyo or Singapore. And he said, Bryce, that's exactly then where you need to go. Because at the end of the day, you got one shot this life, and there's a lot the world to see. You got to take big shots, and I would highly encourage you to see it now, and then you can go visit Argentina and Greece at a later date. I will never forget, I went home from that particular conversation. I said, he's absolutely right. The very next day, I reached out to the professor, and I enrolled myself. I started that process to enroll myself in the Advertising in Asia program. And I was scared. I was nervous. I was excited. It warmed up to me all in one fell swoop, if you will. And as it turns out, on May 18th, 2004, I put myself on a flight from East Lansing, Michigan, all the way to Tokyo, Japan. And over the next following 2 months, I visited Japan. I visited Singapore. I spent about 6 weeks in Hong Kong, living there at the Hong Kong Baptist University, and just having the best life experience in my life. And on one way, it was similar in the sense the first world countries of Japan, of Hong Kong and Singapore. But aside from that similarity, all bets were off. Like, the culture, the food, just everything about the environment was so different. And it just locked this incredible vision in my mind that, holy smokes, Bryce, you are playing so small. You are literally playing in this small field when at the end of the day, there is a giant world ahead of you. And you got to stop playing small. If you want to have the life that you want, you got to start taking big shots, and you got to live way bigger. And for me, my friends, that was the big awakening for me that allowed me to get an internship in Los Angeles and move me out to California, and then follow my dream, becoming a personal trainer, then opening a gym, and becoming a multi-location owner, and then eventually becoming the VP and then not founder, but the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp. So that decision alone to change my mindset. At the time, I was $100,000 mindset, not even, if I'm being very transparent with you, but that shifted my mindset. I need to start playing big. And that's my first lesson for you today in terms of adopting that mindset. Hey there, my name is Bryce Henson, CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, and you might know me as the host of this podcast, but what you might not know is that I started my fitness business journey as a Fit Body location owner. And since 2012, I've been able to impact my community while creating financial freedom, both for myself and my family too. You see, by using Fit Body's proven business model, we give you all the support and guidance you need to be your own boss and build a business that aligns with your passion for fitness. And we are the absolute best at launching and scaling our franchise franchise partners gyms, we are now excited to announce our 100 member guarantee. Now you might be thinking, Bryce, what is that? Well, we are so confident that we'll launch your Fit Body Bootcamp location with well over 100 paying members from day one on your grand opening that if we don't, we'll run your marketing till we do. That's how confident we are in our ability to support you and guide you through this process. So if you're interested in creating more income through impact, click the link somewhere around this video to apply. Now, that all said, now that you know the transition that I went through, the few other takeaways that I want to be able to implore you are this. $100,000 mindset Bryce was focused on how can I be the solo entrepreneur, or solopreneur, I should say. How can I reduce my payroll, reduce all cost, work as much as humanly possible so that way I can take all the profit, and that would be my mindset on how to grow a business. But my friend, that is the worst mindset to have, and really the mindset that's going to shift you away from the small thinking mindset into the $1 million mindset is shifting away from the solopreneur and then start thinking as a leader. How can I build a team of people that are going to be striving towards the same goal, the same mission? Because if you think about it, take a step back, and what I learned is nothing ever great has been done by one person or one person only. If you think about every organization, every movement, every company in the world, it's founded by a team of people working towards a massive goal and alignment. And for me, that was a big aha that I realized is that I can't do everything, that I need to surround myself with smarter people than I am. I need to develop a team, build a team that are smarter than me at their zones of genius, and that way we can construct something big. And for me, that shift away from that solopreneur to being able to team builder and leader was foundational in terms of that $1 million mindset. So that is number one. The next point that I want to drive home is shifting away from working in the business to shifting towards working on the business. And that $100,000 mindset is just working in the business all day, every day. And eventually, my friend, you will lead to burnout, and you're not going to fulfill yourself, your team, your community, your clients. You're not going to be the person that you're destined for if you're totally focused on working inside the business like I was. I needed to have that adoption of working on the business. And there's many ways you can do this. But for me, there's a tool called EOS. And without getting too much granularity, there's a lot of different elements of EOS. And one of them is a weekly L10 meeting. It's important on a team basis to be, in the trenches, knowing, what your team is up to, how the operation, the sales and marketing, very, very important. But that mindset shift to become an empire builder, become a $1 million version of yourself has to have a shift, adopting another tool of EOS, which is the 90-day rock setting. So every 90 days as an organization, as a leader, we remove ourselves from the business. We actually have a full day meeting off-site. And then off-site, we go into big strategic thinking. Okay, what is our business going to look like in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, in the next 3 year? We craft a 3-year picture, a 5-year picture, a 10-year picture. The $100,000 mentality of Bryce would have never thought that. Shoot, I was thinking about planning a week in advance, maybe a month advance at most, and that is no way that you're going to become a $1 million earner. That's just not possible. You need to shift that mindset to work on the business. And another thing that I see that I was guilty of is kind of always feeling I have to have a little side hustle. At the end of the day, yeah, side hustle should be able to be there to learn a skill, but if you're trying to, build a business and have big impact and really make the $1 million version of yourself, you need to learn the skill of a side hustle, but you need to divert from that and you need to go all in on the focal point of your business, of your personal growth, so that way you can level up your mindset and eventually level up your business to make a $1 million mark. So that is shift number 2, shifting away from working totally inside your business to working outside your business as well, or on your business, I should say. And the last bullet point that I wanted to showcase with you to kind of go through that shift of mentality that I made was going from making emotionally driven decisions to become more data-driven decision focused. Because at the end of the day, human nature, we're a ball of emotions, some good, some bad. And you cannot rely on good, strong decisions long-term if you are totally making emotionally driven decisions like I used to. You have to make that shift, that big picture, living large shift, that in order to make the best decisions, they need to be focused on data. I'm going to give you a little bit, a few data points that can help you along your way. But even before, I want to tell you a story around a recent situation that I had looking about a new marketing campaign. So we launched a program called the Ultimate Transformation Program for our brand, which has gotten incredible results. And we launched the first version at our World Conference event in 2022. And it got off to the races strong. We had tested it for 6+ months previously before we launched the brand, so we knew it was going to be effective. But then we decided over the last 6 to 9 months, we're going to test a second version of the Ultimate Transformation Program to make sure to test it out, to vet it out, and then when successful, we can launch it to our brand and really help our franchise partners even exponentially grow their profitability even more. So that was the vision. And I just met with my other franchise business coaches and a team of other owners who are participated in the particular testing period over a 3-month period. And it was interesting. On one hand, I was super frustrated because out of the 10 data points, my location performed the least when I look at the return on investment from an ad spend perspective, the ROAS. But okay, I took a step back because while the $100,000 mentality, Bryce, would have made an emotional decision. Oh, shoot, this second round of testing didn't work. Like, what the heck? I would have just emotionally wrote it off. The $1 million mindset, Bryce, the evolved Bryce, if you will, took a step back. And you know what? I said, hey, we're going to look at the data behind it, see all the data points, and figure out where the break was, and is there an opportunity to better the data? And I'll use an example of a friend of mine who lives in the same market as a franchise business coach, and we live in the same market. We invested roughly about the same amount of money into the advertising campaign. We generated roughly the same amount of leads, had about the same cost per lead. My closing percentage was 3% higher than his closing percentage. So you might be thinking like, well, what the heck? Everything's to be the same, including my closing percentage is higher. But there was one break in the chain. The one break in the chain was the booking percentage. My colleague, Mike, had a full-time focused booker, so every lead coming through was able to book that lead and get them on a sales call, where I had a hybrid situation, and my booking percentage of leads coming through was dramatically less. So when you take a step back, okay, the $100,000 mentality Bryce would have just written off the program, but the $1 million Bryce, knowing my data, understanding the value of data, realized there's only one break in the chain that caused a $10,000 difference in a period of 2 months. One break in the chain caused a $10,000 profitability swing, and it's because I had that mental fortitude. I went through the emotional, I guess, challenge, if you will, of developing that $1 million mindset away from the $100 mindset. And I'm happy to report in phase 2 testing, my numbers are off to an incredible start. But again, it's about understanding, and going away from the small thinking, going to big ticket thinking, and that knowing your data is so important. So a couple other, kind of valuable takeaways you can have is you need to be able to track your numbers. You need to be able to track your leads. You have to understand what your cost per lead, your set, your show, your close percentages are, your return on ad spend. These are just a few of the data points that, version 1.0 of Bryce would never have looked at, would have never honed in on. But the $1 million mindset, Bryce, is really understands the value of knowing your numbers and making data-driven decisions away from emotional-driven decisions. And for me, that has been the difference. So my friends, to wrap, this episode was about leveling you up from a personal perspective, from a professional perspective, and really shifting away from that small town, small mindset thinking that I've been guilty of, or I was guilty of for a long time in my business career, and shifting away from that into that $1 million big picture mindset. And when you do that, doors will open for you and you will level up your business. You'll level up your life. So my friends, that's all I have for you. I know you got value. Assuming you did, give this video a like. And remember, no one is coming to save you. You must save yourself, and the time is now. We'll see you, my friends, in the next episode.